The violence erupted in different parts of Maharashtra and in India after Mahatma's assassination. Violence in the border areas of divided Hindustan and Pakistan never stopped. It came out like earth fire in different forms of destruction, grown like man-made atom bomb, and it became the demon, the terrorism. Violence for power, violence for regionalism, violence for religionalism. The violence is the root of terrorism, which is directly affecting lives of common man, who is not at all concerned either the terrorist or their activities. But then, what is terrorism?
In the modern definition of terrorism, terrorism is an act perpetrated by an individual belonging to an organization which is underground, secretive, on common people who have no issues with the organization or their ideologies. It's a massive act of violence, usually something like a blast or random firing, which the intent is usually to attract a lot of media attention, which would probably give mileage to the organization which is perpetrating that particular act all over the world.
I think most terrorism, I'm not saying all, but most of terrorism begins with some sort of an ideology, genuine grievances that the people have, and they perceive these injustices as being anti-people, and that is why they start agitating, and this agitation then takes a violent turn.
The terrorism has its roots in the history of mankind. The powerful kings established their own kingdoms. Ultimately, the sovereign states were formed all over the world. Though the terrorism is not new to this atom world, which was existed in different groups since 13th century, like Sicarii, the Jewish group, Hashashin, an Islamic sect active in Iran and Syria, and Narodaya in Russia. After the French Revolution in 18th century, anarchism took the form of terrorism in the world. It became dominant after Second World War. The oppressive measures imposed by various totalitarian regimes, notably in Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Stalinist Russia, are some examples in the world, wherein Americans dropping atom bombs on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, and also British air chief bomber are not exceptions to terrorism. Meanwhile, by the mid-1980s, state-sponsored terrorism re-emerged in countries like Iran, Iraq, and Syria. It came to the fore when Iran became Islamic Republic, led it to use and support the terrorism as a means of propagating its goal beyond its border. Religiously motivated terrorism is considered the most alarming threat. Al-Qaeda, Hamas, and Hezbollah, the groups justify their violent activities of terrorism on Islamic grounds, while Christianity, Hinduism, and other religious groups have given rise to their own forms of militant extremism. Ultimately, terrorism took ugly turn. Suicide bombers, AK-47 rifles, modern equipments supplied by the international agencies were used to kill the common man.
For a terrorist act, to have its impact on people through media, there has to be a massive violence. Without creating massive violence, the terrorist activity will not accomplish its goal. Because for creating fear in the mind, creating terror in the mind of common people, one requires to have that kind of an impact where there are mass casualties.
You are having what is called pan-terrorism. The terrorist has no qualms. He doesn't ask the person across what religion that person belongs to. So it could be a Muslim terrorist killing a Muslim terrorist, or it could be a Tamil terrorist killing another Tamilian, because they don't even bother to ask questions. Their whole intention is to create chaos and havoc and kill indiscriminately.
The divided India never escaped from violence. Terrorism in India is primarily attributable to Islamic, Hindu, Sikh, Christian, and Naxalite radical movements. The regions with long-term terrorist activities today are Jammu and Kashmir, Mumbai, and in many parts of Naxalite areas in India. In the past, the Punjab insurgency led to militant activities in the Indian state of Punjab as well as the national capital Delhi. As of 2006, at least 232 of the country's 608 districts were afflicted at differing intensities by various insurgent and terrorist movements. In the beginning, the common man in need of money, wealth was used as suicide bomber. Thereafter, educationists, cyber and technical computer experts were used as suicide bombers to create terror in general public.
These young minds who usually are between the ages of 18 to 25, usually if you see their backgrounds, they come from a very poor family. Usually they are the second or third sibs of the family. The family has a religious background, but these individuals who take up to terrorism are usually not academically not good students, and they are deprived of the social uplifting strokes that usually children get as they grow up. They are extremely proud of themselves and they are well-meaning towards their families. They want families to take pride in their existence, and this is the mentality which leads to affiliation to a terrorist group, which promises them not only money but some status, and after death some religious cults, they say that after death doing these acts you will get benefits in the next birth or whatever. So if you see the background, you will understand that socio-economic conditions do matter. Illiteracy, poverty, marginalization, lack of opportunities, they do play an important role in making of a terrorist.
Well, as a sociologist, I say that they have been brainwashed from when they were children into a particular type of ideology. It could be that your religion right or wrong, or your country right or wrong, and then it is internalized by that person, so much so that that person is not then able to think in any different way. It becomes almost a narrow-minded, intolerant type of thinking.
The act of terrorism was limited to kill the political famous leaders, but at the dawn of 2000, it was used to create the terror in the minds of general public. Mumbai has been the most preferred target for most terrorist organizations, primarily the separatist forces from Kashmir. The terrorism has claimed the lives of lakhs of innocent people all over the world. The terrorism has reached to the doorsteps of the common man. Now, the common man is the sole target of terrorist groups in the world. But then, who is the terrorist? How can we recognize them?
It's extremely difficult because the terrorist belongs to a society and he is part and parcel of the society, irrespective of whether he belongs to a particular country. A terrorist doesn't have a religion, he doesn't have a country of origin. He belongs to a cult, he belongs to a group which has a belief system. And that belief system is very difficult for anybody to understand or identify, because it is the group is supposed to act in an underground secretive way. So obviously they are not going to carry the placards whenever the terrorist goes. So it's extremely difficult to identify a terrorist.
A faceless enemy, enemy who is also perhaps non-state or even state-sponsored. That is another aspect I would like to give to terrorism. Also, there are some terrorists who may be mainly mercenaries, or they may be even criminals, antisocial elements, who are only doing it not out of that ideology that we talked about. That's how it started, but now it has deteriorated into just indiscriminate killing, ruthless violence.
But then, what is the solution to the problem of terrorism?
So you have to bring about a socio-economic change which will bring about a trust building process in common people. The common people who have been providing terrorists to the organizations, they need to change their attitude. We have to block the provision of terrorists to these organizations from the society. That is the only solution, and for that a huge international effort is required.
So hopeless and so dismal, because the roots of terrorism, as we have seen, are so diverse, so deep, that one really doesn't know where should one start solving the problem.
The person who preached the non-violence throughout his life, the Mahatma Gandhi, can we apply his principle to overcome the issue of terrorism? Mahatma made it impossible to the British rule to govern this state. He made the Salt Satyagraha, the Dandi March, and asked the Britishers to leave this country in 1942 by Chale Jao movement at August Kranti Maidan of Gamdevi, Mumbai. A non-violent, peaceful answer to the violent rulers trying to hold the power and create the terror in the minds of the innocent people by brutal attacks who were fighting for their rights and freedom of the country. Are we forgotten the mantra of Satya and non-violence?
Non-violence is a two-way process. What has happened over the years is that the superpowers in the world have probably dealt the issues without any real sense or true disdain for somebody else's thoughts. So the anger against superpower in these marginalized people has been there, slowly rising for years together. Now these small groups or small religious cults, they have no kind of financial powers or ammunition to attack the armies of big countries. So obviously they are going to resort to terrorist activities. They don't trust the international fora that these issues might go to. So this lack of trust and feeling of injustice that has prevailed in these organizations do not bring them to a negotiation table. So a communication process, two-way communication process cannot be established. Now in these situations, I really don't know how non-violence principle is going to be applicable, because the other party is just not willing to talk or negotiate.
You have to understand the context where Gandhi was working. His enemy were the British, and they were not really the enemy in the way that we look at it now. Because he himself was schooled in the British way of education, and he knew here was an enemy which had superior weapons. You couldn't fight them on a battlefield. So he devised this novel strategy of Satyagraha, where it was possible to talk across the table with the enemy, to have a dialogue. If we know Gandhi as he is now, and if we have known that he is a spiritual person and that he is going to talk, and if Ladin feels secure that nothing will happen to him, I think he would agree to talk to he might be, if he can evoke that trust from Ladin. And I think it would be possible if Gandhi was like after he was 60 years old, he was known all the world over as a special type of person who had brought about a new way of thinking. I think then maybe a person like Ladin would say, okay, let's meet in a neutral venue. And the Mahatma, being who he was, would probably go all the way where Ladin's hideout was. Ladin would not come to meet him.
Bapu's own words, he said that I live by truth, peace and non-violence. And he said those are not something that I have invented. They are as old as civilization itself. No murder is necessary, no killing is necessary, because it hasn't solved any problems, killing of anybody.
Recently, it was noticed that 30-year-old Nasik Road Jail hardcore prisoner transformed after reading autobiography of Mahatma Gandhi and confessed his crime. Lakshman Gole, accused in 19 cases of stabbing and extortion and acquitted in 18 cases, read My Experiments with Truth as an under trial and was inspired to confess.
मी आतमध्ये नॉवेल वाचायचो, क्रिमिनल नॉवेल हे जे क्राईम स्टोरी रिपोर्ट आहे ते टाईमपास करायचो. तर त्या दिवशी काय टाईमपास नव्हता मला, ते काय करणार, तर त्या बसलेलो असाच. तर मित्र तो आला, प्रदीप भालेकर, बोलला काय करतोस? मी बोललो काय नाही, बोर होते, टाईमपास नाही. तर बोलले हाय माझ्याकडे एक पुस्तक, तू वाच. तर मी घेतलं ते. त्यांनी आत्मकथा दिलं, सक्षम आत्मकथा होती ते. मला असं वाटलं अगर जगात बदल घडावा असं तुम्हाला वाटत असेल त्याची सुरुवात स्वतःपासून करा. तर बोललं हां हे केलं पाहिजे. तर मी त्याच्यामध्ये एक हे घेतलेलं जेलमध्ये वचन, ते वाचल्यावर की मी सत्य बोलेल आजपासून. त्यानुसार मग जज साहेबाला मी गुन्हा कबूल केला. त्यांनी मग मला 7 वर्षाची शिक्षा होईल असं बोलले. तर मी बोललो हां चालेल. तर त्यांनी 4 वर्ष 2 महिन्याची शिक्षा दिली. गांधी बुक सेंटर सर्वोदय मंडळामुळे मला एक समाजात जगण्याची आणि चांगले विचार करण्याची, जे सत्याचे प्रयोग त्यांनी पुस्तक पाठवून एक अंधारामधून प्रकाशाकडे एक मार्ग दाखवला. तर त्याच्यामुळं मला असं वाटलं का त्यांच्यासाठी काहीतरी कार्य करायला पाहिजे, सर्वोदय मंडळासाठी. तर तेच समाजामध्ये जे गांधीजीचे रचनात्मक कार्यक्रम आणि त्यांचे विचार पुढे कसे वाढवावे, गांधी विचार, त्यानुसार कार्य केले पाहिजे. तर मी त्यांच्या सर्वोदय मंडळासंगती जुडून गांधीजींचे जे रचनात्मक कार्यक्रम, त्यांचे विचार ते पुढे नेत आहे.
Even today, the Mumbai Sarvodaya Mandal is visiting in different jails and trying to pursue the prisoners to read Mahatma's books and literature, conduct the examinations and trying to motivate to be respected individuals.
और आतंकवाद जब बढ़ता है इसका कारण है कि हमने ये सत्य अहिंसा को भूल गए हैं. तो ये वापस ही आना पड़ेगा. इसलिए उन्होंने 2 अक्टूबर को नॉन वायलेंस डे बढ़ाया है और जगह जगह पर ये कार्यक्रम करके लोगों को याद दिलाते हैं सत्य और अहिंसा, प्रेम, इक्वालिटी के बिना ये समाज और विश्व नहीं टिकेगा.
But then the question remains, can we apply the same principles of Mahatma for finishing terrorism?
As violence seems to overpower us, non-violence becomes critically relevant and essential for us, and as long as that is there, then Bapu will always be relevant.
His ideologies, his views, his opinions all are much more relevant in today's turbulent times. We see all around world, even in India, we see, a lot of problems surrounding us. And as he used to say, one bomb cannot be the answer for another bomb. Similarly, it is only non-violence and, feeling of unity within the country, which can combine India and which can take India forward to the path of progress.
He is relevant also today, and he's a motivated leader, and in the extreme world, he can help all the countries to solve problems.
Today, in the world in crisis, the ideology of Gandhi makes even more sense. Freedom, non-corruption, integrity, it's the big lesson of Gandhi.
Some people who are thinking about peace and how to make a better world, they definitely come down to Gandhi and his basic ideas about the non-violence. And
at the present moment, the world doesn't know simplistic solutions to terrorism. Israel and Palestine, the conflict has been there for such a long time. One of the most successful negotiations that probably history has witnessed is the negotiation between the British government and the Irish Republic Army. And IRA is now nearly extinct. So what I feel is that the kind of processing that happened between IRA and the British government should be the role model for tackling issues like terrorism.
The efforts are made to find a solution to the problem of terrorism at national and international levels. But terrorist attacks are increasing day by day. The common man goes to attend to his workplace in the morning, but he has no guarantee that he will return home safely. The terrorists attack public places like railway, buses, malls, hotels and restaurants. The death toll due to terrorist attacks since 1980 has crossed more than 5 lakhs all over the world. But then, what is the solution? The ordinary people are fed up of the discussions. They don't know what will be the solution to the terrorism in the world. They are in constant threat of terrorist attacks in Mumbai and metro cities in the world.
Whereas in a terrorist activity, the activity is directed to people who are in no way associated with the ideological goals. Okay, and that is the problem that the world faces when they are trying to curb terrorism. Because great leaders like Mahatma Gandhi in modern days would get a whole lot of security, Zs and double Zs and triple Zs. Okay, but how can you give security to a common man? He is exposed to the system that he lives in, the society that he lives in. And there are lots of loopholes in any society. In India, India as a whole becomes a very, very soft target to such kinds of terrorist attacks.
I would like to, as I said, that today, because we know that the terrorist has no qualms about killing anyone, anywhere, the ordinary citizen's life has changed in a very extraordinary manner, and not for the better. Here is a human being who leaves his home in the morning and is not even quite sure whether he will be shot in the train or shot on the road. Is this not making us feel a little more insecure? Feeling of insecurity that we are feeling today, the feeling of isolation, that I am not lonely, but I am alone. If something happens, there is not really going to be no one to help me. There's a sense of helplessness, hopelessness, maybe even powerlessness that is there with the people, and I think that needs to be now addressed. That is an issue that needs to be addressed.
Since the terrorist groups are hiding, the solution is not in sight. Common man has become hopeless and restless. Therefore, when a terrorist is caught, he reacts. What we should do to the terrorist?
The terrorist, if they're caught, then they should be questioned, and the country behind it should be actually fired.
If terrorists are caught, they should be sent to rehabilitation centers, and maybe they have these wrong impressions about being terrorists. The groups, they catch them, they put in wrong impression in youngsters, that should be removed.
Terrorists are caught, they should be tortured to such an extent that they give out from where they are.
माझं तरी आज असं म्हणणं होतं की आजच्या दिवसाला नक्कीच त्याला गेटवे ऑफ इंडियाला घेऊन सगळ्यांच्या पुढ्यात त्याला तिथल्या तिथे शूट करायला पाहिजे.
Common people, yeah, those innocent people, those are getting killed because of these terrorists. You should first take all the information from them, like the alive terrorists, and then you should hang them in the place of public only where they have killed the people. You should hang him till then.
They should be given the worst punishment that a person can give to anyone.
I think he should be hanged.